Chapter 22. Hatter put one foot in the puddle, but the sole of his shoe never touched the bottom. He stumbled down, falling deeper and deeper, until he stopped and floated in the depths, only to shoot up again as fast as his descent had been. When he broke the surface, he was in the pool of tears. The clouds above swirled violently, and the water was rough and choppy. He swam to the crystal shore, his senses alive to any sign of Red or her hordes. He climbed out of the water and stealthily approached the nearest tree, a beaten old thing with a scarred trunk and leafless, craggy branches. "Has Princess Alice returned to Wonderland? Have you seen her come out of the pool?" "Princess Alice is dead," the tree said loudly, as if it had the benefit of an unseen but all-hearing force liable to inflict great hurt at the slightest provocation. "I have no evidence of her death." "Princess Alice Hart is dead," the tree said louder than ever, but added in a whisper, "Red's glass eyes are everywhere. It's dangerous to talk, but the princess has not returned." Hatter didn't know what the glass eyes were. Red had only recently unleashed them on the queendom, but he wasn't going to stick around to find out. As long as he had enough strength in him, his duty dictated that he return to the other world and search for the princess. He would find her, train her in the ways of a warrior queen, as he had her mother. Then they would both come home to face plenty of trouble, the glass eyes only being part of it. He dived back into the pool of tears, the gravity of the portal already growing more familiar to him, pulling him down. Likewise, more familiar to him was the pause in the deep, the momentary suspension, followed by the heart and mouth feeling as he rocketed up and out of the puddle behind a milking shed on the outskirts of Budapest, Hungary. 3 unimpressed goats were the only earthly creatures to see the figure twirl out of a sun-scorched puddle and land confidently on his feet. Hatter wondered whether he could learn to navigate the pool of tears as he did the crystal continuum, so that he might be able to choose his earthly destination. Control would be more difficult to attain than it was in the continuum. Water was a heavy medium. To maneuver in it would require skill, balance, endurance, strength of body and mind. But these were considerations for another day, another year, because Hatter's worldwide search for Alice now began in earnest. He trailed people alight with the glow of imagination, believing that one of them would lead him to Wonderland's princess. Who couldn't fail to glow in this world? He visited hat shops in the towns and cities of Spain, Portugal, Belgium, Switzerland, Austria, Bavaria, Italy, Prussia, Greece, Poland, to name but several. In 1864, 5 years into his search, having twice circled the European continent, he took the Calais ferry to Dover, England. Had Alice's Adventures in Wonderland been published by the time he had arrived, any one of the salespeople in the hat shops and haberdasheries he visited would have been stung with recognition upon hearing the name Princess Alice Heart of Wonderland issue from his lips, though they might have thought him mad, a man in search of a fictional character. As it was, they only tried to sell him hats he didn't need while complimenting him on the one he wore. Hatter would be far from England a year later when Charles Dodgson's book was first published. As he roamed the world in search of Wonderland's princess, maps sticking out of every available pocket, worn from use and much scribbled on with notes of where he'd been and what routes he'd taken, Hatter's legend grew. Though the languages in which it was told varied as widely as the terrain he covered, ranging from Afrikaans to Hindi to Japanese to Welsh, and the details of the story often changed, its basic premise was the same. A solitary man, blessed with fear, some physical abilities, and armed with a curious assemblage of weaponry, crossed continents on a mysterious quest that led him to headwear merchants the world over. Whether a peddler of knitted caps operating from a tent in North African Bedouin encampment or an exclusive hat shop in the heart of Prague, Hatter sightings were reported in America, which was nearing the end of a civil war. Glimpses of him stalking streets in New York and Massachusetts, tramping the snow-covered hills of Vermont, the icy roads of Delaware, Rhode Island, New Hampshire, and Maine. He traveled down through Mexico and South America, skirted the Antarctic Peninsula, and circled back up to California and Oregon. He passed into Canada and eventually made his way to the Asian countries in the Far East. Then in the 3rd week of April 1872, 13 years after he lost Alice, Hatter entered a shop in a crowded bazaar in Egypt. in the shadow of the Great Pyramid of Giza. "I'm looking for Princess Alice Heart of Wonderland," he said to the shopkeeper. "I'm a member of the Wonderland's Millenary. Any information you have pertaining to Princess Alice will be highly appreciated and in due time rewarded." He had uttered these exact words so many times and not once met with success that a normal man would have given up on their power to provoke a meaningful response. The truth was, he didn't expect the shopkeeper to have any information, so he was surprised when the man beckoned him toward a high shelf where a book was leaning between a miniature sphinx carved out of sandstone and a basket of dried camel tongues. The man dusted it with his sleeve and handed it to Hatter. It was an English edition of Alice's Adventures in Wonderland. Her name was misspelled, but Wonderland? Surely it was his Alice. How could it be anyone else? The girl in the illustrations looked nothing like her, and yet it could not be coincidence. Hatter's future path had become clear. To find Alice, he would first have to find the book's author, Lewis Carroll.